प्राप्यस्य ब्रह्मणो रूपं प्राप्तुश्च प्रत्यगात्मनः प्राप्त्युपायं फलं चैव तथा प्राप्ति विरोधि च वदन्ति सकला वेदाः सेतिहासपुराणकाः मुनयश्च महात्मानः वेदार्थवादिनः. We have all assembled here today to relish in brief one of the very popular Upanishads, Taittiriya Upanishad. In Sanatana Dharma, we have a body of knowledge. When we say Shastras, Shastra refers to a body of knowledge, not a single book. It seems somebody asked, what is your holy book in Sanatana Dharma? And one of the acharyas responded saying, luckily for us, it is not one holy book, we have a library. The beauty of Sanatana Dharma is that we have a body of knowledge, several books, if we were to use the term books, texts. But all of this together cohesively speak only one language. Superficially, on the surface, we may see apparent contradictions, inconsistencies. But then, when we dive deep and we start to link the dots and see the big picture, the whole body of knowledge speaks in unison, gives us one message without any contradictions, without any inconsistencies. All our acharyas have strived only to establish this validity of consistent messaging across all our shastras. Chaturdasha Vidyasthanas. If somebody asks us, what is our shastra? The answer should be Chaturdasha Vidyasthanas. 14 texts which constitute, they are called Vidyasthanas. Vidyasthana, the body of knowledge, the 4 Vedas, the 6 Vedangas, and the 4 Upangas together are celebrated as Chaturdasha Vidyasthanas. Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvana Veda. These are the 4 Vedas. And then we have 6 Vedangas. Siksha, Vyakarana, Chandas, Nirukta, Jyotisha, Kalpa. Without the Vedangas, it is impossible to interpret and understand the Vedas. So anyone who engages in the study of Vedas has to necessarily engage in the study of the Vedangas. And then we have the 4 Upangas. Nyaya, Mimamsa, Itihasa Purana, Dharma Shastra. Itihasa Purana together and Dharma Shastra, the 4th. Mimamsa Shastra is further divided into 2. Purva Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa. Purva Mimamsa deals with, Mimamsa means analysis. Nyaya is logic. Mimamsa is the art and science of analysis. Mimamsa divided into 2 parts. Uttara Mimamsa, Purva Mimamsa. Uttara Mimamsa is analysis of the Karmakanda of the Vedas. The Karmakanda of the Vedas deal with the Nitya, Naimittika karmas. Karmakanda of the Vedas deal with how to conduct our life and living based on the injunctions of Vaidika way of life and living. And Jaimini is the one who authored the Purva Mimamsa. Uttara Mimamsa is the analysis of the Upanishads, which is the Vedanta. Badarayana Vedavyasa is the one who authored the Brahma Sutras, which is essentially the Uttara Mimamsa. Itihasa Puranas we know, and then Dharma Shastras. All the 14 put together are celebrated as Chaturdasha Vidyasthanas. In this, if we look at the Vedas, when we say Vedas, the Veda also includes the Vedanta, the concluding portion of the Vedas. At a high level, the Vedas deal with two primary topics. One is about how to lead our lives in this very life, how to lead our lives in this world. The other is how do we exit this world, attain moksha, and fulfill the mission of our life by an inquiry into that Supreme Being. In the Karma Kanda, we see the rishis invoking several devatas, and then many misunderstand Sanatana Dharma and they say we are polytheistic in nature. When we come to Brahma Kanda, we see how all the various devatas are various parts, various manifestations, various vibhutis of one Supreme Being, Brahman, Parabrahman. The Brahma Kanda is, as the name suggests, inquiry of Brahman. The Brahma Kanda is essentially Vedanta, Upanishads. So therefore today we are about to pick one of the Upanishads. There are several Upanishads, as we know. There are 10 principal Upanishads, and on top there are also another 5-6 very important Upanishads. Some say there are 108 Upanishads, yes, but then we choose the 14-15 Upanishads which are authentic in nature, because our Acharyas, be it Ramanuja, Adi Shankara or Madhva, have primarily quoted and referred to a set of Upanishads which become the basis for us. Also, the 3 of these from these 14 Vidyasthanas are popularly celebrated as Prasthanatraya: the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, and the Bhagavad Gita. Among the various Upanishads, Taittiriya Upanishad belongs to the Aranya Shakha of Krishna Yajurveda. Now we saw that there are 4 Vedas: Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvana Veda. Vyasa, the one who classified, codified the Vedas. Vedas were one body of knowledge until Dwapara Yuga. Every Dwapara Yuga, Vedavyasa is a title given to the one, the Maharishi, who classifies and codifies. In the current Chatur Yuga, it is Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa, who is the very avatara of Narayana. Vyasaya Vishnu Rupaya Vyasa Rupaya Vishnave Namo Vai Brahmanidaye Vasishtaya Namo Namaha. Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa divides the one body of Vedas into 4 for the sake of simplifying the study of Vedas. He knows that it is not possible for ordinary mortals to engage in the study of the entire body of Vedas, and therefore he classifies them, codifies them as Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvana Veda. Each of the Vedas also include Upanishads. Upanishad is nothing but Vedanta. The Anta of Veda, ending, concluding portion of Vedas is Vedanta. Also, the concluding message of the Upanishads is also Vedanta. That is why Brahma Vichara. Upanishads deal with Brahma Vichara. After Karma Vichara, we deal with Brahma Vichara. In fact, if we see the Gita Shastra with which we are all familiar, the way Krishna divides, Veda structures Gita is in the lines of Upanishads. He first takes up Karma Vichara and then he takes up Brahma Vichara. So the Upanishads which deal with Brahma Vichara are towards the concluding portions of all the Vedas. Now the Taittiriya Upanishad that we are going to relish at a high level, in brief, belongs to Yajurveda. The flavor of Yajurveda, which is called Krishna Yajurveda. Now this is where we need to see how Yajurveda became two in number. There are two versions of Yajurveda: Krishna Yajurveda, Shukla Yajurveda. Now, one of the central characters across all the Upanishads, the great Rishi Yajnavalkya plays a very important role here as well. The way Krishna Yajurveda was propagated. Yajurveda was propagated by Vedavyasa. Vedavyasa, after classifying the Vedas, he then requested his Sishyas to take up the responsibility of propagation of the Vedas. Paila, Vaishampayana, Jaimani, Sumantu, each of these rishis were given responsibility to propagate different Vedas. Paila was given in charge of propagating Rig Veda, Vaishampayana with Yajurveda, Jaimini with Samaveda, Sumantu with Atharvana Veda. Now Vaishampayana, the Veda that is propagated by Vaishampayana is Krishna Yajurveda. Now this Krishna Yajurveda was taught by Vaishampayana to all his Sishyas. And one of his Priya Sishyas was Yajnavalkya. Vichitra Ishwar Sankalpa, it so happened that a time came when Vaishampayana had to command Yajnavalkya to return the knowledge that was bestowed to him. Vaishampayana commanded that Yajnavalkya return the knowledge that was gained, the knowledge of Yajurveda, Krishna Yajurveda. And Vaishampayana had to return the knowledge. Those were the days when we say return the knowledge, it is not returning a book. There was no concept of a book. It was knowledge that was retained here in one's memory. Vaishampayana, looking at the pros and cons, decided to return the knowledge back to his guru, and it seems he decided to spew out the Veda, spew out the knowledge, and it so happened that what was spewed out emanated outside of Vaishampayana as red hot lava. Realizing the severity of the situation, Vedavyasa rushed to the scene, and in order to prevent Yajurveda from extinction, he sprinkled holy waters on all the other Sishyas of Vaishampayana like Apastambha, Bodhayana and others. And it seems the Sishyas of Vaishampayana who were there immediately were transformed into Tittiri Pakshis. Tittiri Pakshi is a bird which can eat fire. These disciples of Vaishampayana, having transformed into Tittiri Pakshis, immediately ate the lava that was spewed out. And this is how the Yajurveda, which is now called Krishna Yajurveda, came to be preserved through all these rishis, the Sishyas of Vaishampayana. And that Shaka of Yajurveda, which was preserved thus through the form of Tittiri Pakshis, came to be known as Taittiriya Shaka, Taittiriya Samhita. And the Upanishad that belongs to this Taittiriya Samhita is celebrated as Taittiriya Upanishad. because it was preserved through rishis who took the form of Tittiri Pakshis. The name Taittiriya was given to this Shakha. Taittiriya Upanishad belongs to the Aranya Shakha of Krishna Yajurveda. Yajnavalkya later on went and prayed to Surya Bhagavan, and through Surya Narayana, another form of Yajurveda was revealed to Yajnavalkya, which is now celebrated as Shukla Yajurveda. That is a different legend altogether. Now coming to Taittiriya Upanishad. Taittiriya Upanishad essentially is housed in the 5th and 6th prashnas of the Aranya Shaka of Krishna Yajurveda. Now the Vedas and the Upanishads have several segments and divisions. There are Khandas, there are Prashnas, there are Prapatakas, there are Anuvakas, different ways. Essentially, it is segmentation, dividing them into smaller parts. So the 5th and 6th Prashna of the Aranya Shaka of Krishna Yajurveda houses the brilliant Taittiriya Upanishad. The Taittiriya Upanishad, the 5th Shaka, houses 3 chapters of the Taittiriya Upanishad. ShikshAvalli, Anandavalli, Bhriguvalli. The 6th Shaka houses the 4th chapter of the Taittiriya Upanishad, which is called Narayana Upanishad. So therefore, the 4 chapters put together across the 5th and 6th Shakas, Aranya Shakas of Krishna Yajurveda. ShikshAvalli, Anandavalli, also celebrated as BrahmAnandavalli, Bhriguvalli, Narayana Upanishad. All 4 put together is celebrated as Taittiriya Upanishad. There is also another way to look at classification. These 4 which constitute Taittiriya Upanishad are also categorized into 3. Samhiti Vidya, Varuni Vidya, Yajniki Vidya. What is Samhiti Vidya? Samhiti Vidya means knowledge. Samhiti Vidya, Samhitopasana, Upasana of Samhitas. Sikshavalli of Taittiriya Upanishad deals with the Samhitas, how to chant Vedas. So therefore it is called Samhiti Vidya. Varuni Vidya. Varuni Vidya is a combination of Anandavalli and Bhriguvalli together, which deal with Brahma Vidya as instructed by Varuna to Bhrigu. That is why it is called Varuni Vidya. Third is Yajniki Vidya. Yajniki Vidya deals with performing yajnas in adoration of the Supreme Being, which is Mahanarayana Upanishad. Understanding, realizing that every yajna, while several devatas are invoked, ultimately Narayana, who is the Antaryami of all the devatas, is the one who bestows all the rewards of the yajna. As Krishna himself declares in the Gita, Aham Kratur Aham Yajnam, he says. Bhagavan, he is yajna personified, and every offering in any yajna to any devata ultimately reaches to that one Supreme Being. Realizing and adoring Bhagavan, and when we adore him by also adoring several devatas, understanding that this multiplicity of all the devatas are essentially, there is an underlying unity. All the devatas in Sanatana Dharma are all parts of that one Supreme Being, various manifestations, and realizing that every yajna is adoring that one Supreme Being, that is Yajniki Vidya. And Narayana Upanishad is what Yajniki Vidya is all about. As we go along, there will be several such terms. So whenever possible, try to make notes, otherwise you will completely miss out. And since Upanishads are very profound in nature, while we can deal with it at several levels, we also have to deal with certain complexities. After all, Upanishads means philosophy. So Upanishads in the last session was all about stories. So So those of you who possibly walked in thinking that it is going to be story time, you will be possibly disappointed. The story time is over. Now it is philosophy time. However, I will try to see how to make the philosophy as simple as possible. After all, underlying the profound philosophy, the message is very, very simple in nature. So we will try to understand the central message of the Taittiriya Upanishad. So we have looked at the structure of the Taittiriya Upanishad, which essentially comprises of 4 parts: ShikshAvalli, Anandavalli, Bhriguvalli, Narayana Upanishad. Now we need to look at each of the primary parts of the Samhiti Vidya, the Yajniki Vidya, and the Varuni Vidya. ShikshAvalli. ShikshAvalli is the first segment of Taittiriya Upanishad. It's a very interesting Upanishad, where we see how a Sishya and a Guru bond with each other in the process of learning. When we look at the contents of ShikshAvalli, we see how relevant it is even today. ShikshAvalli at the core deals with this bonding of a Guru with a Sishya and the process of learning. ShikshAvalli, the reason why it is called ShikshAvalli, Siksha, because it also deals with one of the Vedangas, which is Siksha. We said there are 6 Vedangas. What are the 6 Vedangas? Siksha, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Jyotisha, Kalpa, Chandas. These are the various Angas. Now, the way to understand these Angas is to look at a metaphor. If metaphorically, if we look at Veda as a Purusha, Veda Purusha, as a form, now these Vedangas are various limbs of this Veda Purusha. This way we will easily understand. If Vedas are a Purusha, metaphorically, Siksha becomes the very breath, the very nostril of the Veda Purusha. Siksha is to do with how to precisely chant the Vedas. Possibly all of us by now understand how the entire body of knowledge in Sanatana Dharma was preserved and transmitted. Thousands of years before writing even started, I'm not even talking about printing press, which is few hundred years. We should go back to the age where even writing also did not start. The Vedas were transmitted faithfully from one generation to the other. The entire body of knowledge. We just need to imagine. We are not talking about one shloka, one mantra being passed from one generation to the other. We are talking about lakhs and crores of mantras and shlokas, faithfully from one generation to the other, preserved without any errors over thousands of years. This is nothing less than a miracle. But it is not miracle. There is a science behind this. There is an art behind this. We cannot just brush aside saying it is all miraculous in nature. Siksha is the science of pronunciation. Siksha is the science of chanting. That ensured that this body of knowledge of Vedas were transmitted from one generation, from Guru to a Sishya, from another Guru to another Sishya, and so on, over thousands of years, without any corruption, without any contamination whatsoever. So the Siksha for Veda Purusha is like the very breath, the nostrils. Chandas, which is prosody, meter, is like the feet on which the Veda Purusha rests. No, all of us who know the Gita, we know the Anushtup Chandas. Chandas is the meter. the prosody, the way, the rhythm of the Vedas. Without the rhythm, it's very difficult to keep the shlokas and the mantras intact. The chandas gives the rhythm, the movement. That's why they are likened metaphorically to the feet. Nirukta is etymology. Etymology reveals the meaning of Vedas. Now, the Vedas have their own etymology. The Vedas have their own grammar. The Vaidika grammar is so very different to the regular grammar. So, understand Vedas is not very easy. One needs to necessarily study the grammar which helps us to understand. So, the grammar and the etymology, which is Nirukta, together help us know the meaning of the Veda Shabdas, the Veda Mantras, the Veda Anuvakas, the Veda Prapatakas, and so on. So, Nirukta is like the ears because it reveals the meaning. Then we have the Kalpa. The Kalpa are the rituals, the science and art and science of rituals, performing the Vedic rites, the Vedic yajnas. So they are like the arms, because it is through Kalpa that the Vedas are implemented through various rituals. Then the eyes of the Veda Purusha are the Jyotisha. Jyotisha is astronomy and astrology put together. Astronomy and every Vaidika rite, yajna that is performed, is based on a particular planetary position, and the Jyotisha Shastra helps us to understand the movement of the planets, and that is the astronomy part. The astrology part is predicting the movements, giving guidelines and prescriptions in terms of the events that could potentially unfold. So therefore, Jyotisha Shastra is like the eyes of the Veda Purusha. The grammar, Vyakarana Shastra, is like the organ of the mouth with which the right kind of sentences are made. So thus we see all the Veda Angas are necessary for the Vedas to be understood. Unfortunately, today neither we have people who study the Vedas in detail nor the Veda Angas, and that is the reason why we have this challenge of trying to get the purport of what Vedas teach, and as time goes by, we are becoming more and more Avaidika in nature. And unfortunately, this is what Kali Yuga is meant to be. So coming back to Siksha. So Siksha is all about the art and science of phonetics. It is about how the Veda mantras are to be chanted. Siksham Vyakyasyamaha Varnaswaraha Matrabhalam Samasantanaha Ityukta Sikshadhyayaha. See, when we talk about phonetics, there are ways with which the Veda mantras that are revealed to the rishis, the Vedas are revelations. That is why they are called Shabda Pramanas. While there are rishis for every mantra, the rishis did not compose. These were revelations to these rishis. The rishis are conduits for all the Veda mantras. It is through rishis that the Veda mantras are revealed, and when they are revealed, the Shabdas are organized in a way that it becomes conducive for preservation and transmission. Varna stands for the sound, different kinds of sounds that are made. Swara is accent, tone with which the Vedas are chanted. No, Vedas cannot be chanted just like we chant any shloka. The Vedas have to be chanted with the right accent, with the right tone. There are three kinds of tones: Data, Udata, Anudata, Swarita. And there is Dirgha Swarita, different way. That is why when you see Purohitas chanting Vedas, you see various accents, ups and downs, and one needs to practice. And the reason why this is done so is to preserve the sanctity of the Shabdas, the words, and the flow. Then we have Matra Balam. Matra is not the matra that we consume. The matra here is the duration with which a syllable is pronounced. This is very unique to Sanskrit. There is a, there is a. A is one matra. A is two matras. So matra is the duration of a syllable. Balam, the force with which one utters a word. Very clearly, one has to apply the right kind of strength and the force to the vocal cord. It cannot be too harsh, it cannot be too soft. Matra balam, sama santanaha. Sama, spacing of every syllable needs to be properly done. Santana, the flow, how various words, what words can be combined, what words cannot be combined. There are rules for sandhi, there are rules for samasa. So the flow, how the words come out while they are chanted, all these, the Siksha Shastra takes into account. It is because of Siksha that today we have whatever we have. We do not have the entire body of Vedas preserved. We have one small fragment which is preserved even today. It is because of the Siksha. So ShikshAvalli deals with Siksha. ShikshAvalli also deals with the it is also can be called as chapter of instructions, because we see instructions being given to a Sishya by a Guru. It is the way the Guru recommends the right way of life and living for a Sishya who is graduating from a Gurukula. The concluding part of ShikshAvalli is all about, it's like a valedictory address. While students graduate, they are told as to how, once they go out of Gurukula, how to conduct one's life and living. A profound instruction by a guru to the teacher, or by a guru to the student. ShikshAvalli starts with a very, very profound prayer, simple prayer, a prayer which essentially invoking the grace of the Supreme Being for the protection of both the Guru and the Sishya. Channo mitrasham varunaha, channo bhavat paryama, channa indro brihaspatihi, channo vishnu rurukramaha, namo brahmane, namaste vayo, tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi, tvameva pratyaksham brahma vadishyami, ritam vadishyami, satyam vadishyami, tanmam avatu, tatbhaktaram avatu mam, avatu bhaktaram, om shanti, 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 shanti. A very, very profound prayer. When we look at the message of this prayer, it is so very applicable for all of us who are on this path of spiritual journey. It is applicable to the Acharya, it is applicable to a Sishya, bringing both of them together in a very sacred bond. The grace of the Supreme Being is invoked to various devatas: Mitra, Varuna, Aryama, Brihaspati. Interestingly, we see Mitra is the deity of the day. Mitra is the deity, the presiding deity of the day, who is responsible for driving away the darkness. A day means it's ushering in light. A Mitra is the deity, is the devata, the presiding deity who ushers in light by dispelling darkness. Mitra is also the presiding deity of prana. So therefore, when we start on the journey of learning, we start by invoking the grace of Mitra. Across all our Shastras, the message is very clear. The culmination of any learning, what could be the culmination of any learning? The answer is very simple. The culmination of any learning is to learn that we need to keep learning. Because learning never ends. The culmination of learning is the realization that we need to learn to keep learning. So, Mitra is evoked so that we continue on this path of learning. Immediately, Varuna is invoked. Varuna is the presiding deity of night, presiding deity of day, presiding deity of night. It's very important to invoke the grace of Varuna, so that night means restfulness. Night is the cessation of all actions, cessation of our wakefulness. It is the time to recoup our energy so that we can begin another day with all the energy that is required. So the grace of Varuna is invoked immediately. Aryama's grace. Aryama is the presiding deity of the sun. The very benevolence behind sun is being invoked because we are all, whether we realize it or not, we are all nourished with warmth, light, food, rains, everything that is needed for life and living on this planet. Aryama therefore is invoked and thanking for the benevolence behind that. All these are various deities, but they are all vibhutis of the Supreme Being. And after invoking all these deities, then immediately we can also visualize this as invoking the grace of Vishwarupa of Bhagavan, because every deity is a part of the Vishwarupa. And then when we invoke the Vishwarupa, what comes to our mind? The glorious Trivikrama Avatara of Bhagavan. Namo Vishnave, Vishnur Urukramaha. Immediately after invoking all the deities, recognizing the Antaryami in each of these deities, one surrenders to the feet of. Why specifically Trivikrama Avatara is invoked here? Because the feet of Trivikrama, Vamana instantaneously transforms into Trivikrama, and we are assured that those divine feet are capable of unimaginable wonders, unimaginable exploits. In one moment, those tiny feet transformed and then started to measure all the lokas. So therefore, one surrenders to those divine feet. Namo Brahmane, he Parabrahman, Namaste Vayo. Beautifully, it says, how do I perceive you? In Narayana, you are everywhere. Now, Vishnu, why do we call him Vishnu? The all-pervading Parabrahman is called Vishnu because Vishnu means one who pervades and permeates. Now, how do I perceive this? Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo. We can easily perceive. Vayu, air, is all-pervading. By perceiving Vayu, the Upanishad says, we can perceive the Parabrahman. And by perceiving Vayu, also Vayu is necessary for bringing out every Shabda outside. It is the air which ensures that we are able to articulate every chant. Therefore, Shabda Pramana depends on the cooperation of Vayu Devata. Without Vayu, there can be no Shabda. And therefore, Namaste Vayo. Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi. You are the Pratyaksha Devata. We are searching for Bhagavan. Where can we find him? He is in Vaikuntha. He can be reached. I know he pervades everywhere, but how do I experience his pervasion? Experiencing Vayu should remind us that we are experiencing him all the time. Namaste Vayo. Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi. Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami. Ritam Vadishyami. Satyam Vadishyami. Ritam Vadishyami. Let me always be aligned with Rita. Rita means the laws that govern the workings of the cosmos. Rita, that which brings harmony between all the devatas, all the manushyas, and the nature. Because every action that we do is a collaborative action with the devatas. Throughout the Vedas, we learn that we as manushyas cannot move an inch without the collaboration of all the devatas. Every action is a yajna. Every action, whether it is a trivial action as moving this hand, or any action that we can think of that we do, is actually a yajna. Why? It is a collaborative action. It involves collaborating with various devatas who govern various cosmic functions. So therefore, here the rhythm is invoked, saying Ritam Vadishyami. May I always be aligned with the Rita, which means may I always lead my life as a yajna. May I do every action as a yajna. Ritam Vadishyami. Satyam Vadishyami. Satyam is truthfulness. Satya is the foundation of reality. Ritam is the principles that govern reality. And what is Dharma? Dharma is the understanding and application of Ritam. That is why across Shastras we see these three important terms. Ritam, Satyam, Dharmam. Satya, foundation of reality. That never changing foundation. Rita, the principles that govern reality. Dharma, that which translates Rita into action. Dharma is understanding and application of Rita. Ritam vadishyami, Satyam vadishyami, Tanmam avatu, Tat bhaktaram avatu, avatu mam, avatu bhaktaram. Essentially, invoking the grace of the Supreme Being for protection. May the Supreme protect me. May the Supreme protect my Acharya. May the Supreme protect all of us as we embark on this glorious journey of learning. Because everyone who embarks on this glory of learning has to pray that this journey of learning never comes to a stop. May it continue forever. Because learning essentially means learning, knowing, experiencing, realizing, all of this keeps happening. And even after moksha, it doesn't stop. So therefore, all the devatas and the Supreme is invoked and the grace is invoked for this learning to continue. Therefore, ShikshAvalli helps us to understand the importance of learning, the importance of applying principles, virtues for leading our lives beyond the school, beyond the Gurukula. The relationship between Guru and Sishya is not just until the learning in the Gurukula is there, it continues beyond. Ritam cha swadhyaya pravachane cha, Satyam cha swadhyaya pravachane cha, Tapas cha swadhyaya pravachane cha, Damas cha swadhyaya pravachane cha, Shamas cha swadhyaya pravachane cha, Agnis cha swadhyaya pravachane cha, Agnihotram cha swadhyaya pravachane cha, Maunusham cha swadhyaya pravachane cha, Praja cha swadhyaya pravachane cha, Prajanas cha swadhyaya pravachane cha. So goes on, the instructions of the Guru to a Sishya goes on in terms of how once you leave the Gurukula, how do you lead your lives based on Rita, based on Satya, based on Tapa, based on Dhamma, based on Shama, based on the ways of conducting yajnas and contributing to the society. So ShikshAvalli therefore is so very significant that it teaches us the very process of learning, which involves chanting, learning the Vedas, and applying the essence of Vedas in our day-to-day life. And then we move to Anandavalli, BrahmAnandavalli. It is called BrahmAnandavalli, highly philosophical in its content. By its very title, we can easily understand that BrahmAnandavalli, it essentially talks about Brahmananda. So it has to be so very blissful, Brahmananda. BrahmAnandavalli has several important topics. This part of the Taittiriya Upanishad deals with giving us a definition of Parabrahman. It deals with teaching us on the nature of the ultimate reality. It also deals with giving us various ways of peeling the various layers of our existence to discover our nature and the nature of the Paramatma within. It takes us through various layers. They can be looked upon various forms. They can be looked upon various sheets, the koshas, which can be peeled. It also teaches us ultimately that the ultimate destination is a destination of Ananda, which is the nature of Bhagavan. So therefore, that is why it's called BrahmAnandavalli. Brahmavid apnoti param tadeshabhyukta Satyam jnanam anantam Brahma yo veda nihitam guhayam parame vyoman soshtute sarvan kaman saha brahmana vipaschiteti. This is how the Upanishad begins. We need to pause here to understand the very context and the central purport of this Upanishad. BrahmAnandavalli, this segment of Taittiriya Upanishad. It says, Brahmavit apnoti param. Brahmavit, the knower of Brahman, attains the supreme state. The knower of Brahman attains the supreme state. Brahmavit apnoti param. Apnoti means attaining. Param, the supreme state, reaches Brahman. The knower of Brahman reaches Brahman. Now, straight away, there are three questions which are answered by this segment of Taittiriya Upanishad. What is the nature of Brahman? What is the means of attainment? What is the nature of the attainment? What is the nature of Brahman? What is the nature of God? Brahman is the Upanishadic term for God. What is the nature of that supreme being? What is the means to attain him? What is the nature of the means to attain him? Once we attain, what is the nature of that attainment? When we say moksha, what is the nature of that moksha? All these three questions are together answered right at the beginning of BrahmAnandavalli of Taittiriya Upanishad. Brahmavit apnoti param. Brahmavit, the one who knows with know. Brahman, apnoti param, attains him, tadeshab yukta. Satyam, jnanam, anantam, Brahma. So, one who knows Brahman, which means know Brahman. How do I know Brahman? How do I know him? How do I define him? Ultimately, we have this question immediately. The Upanishads here, in general, come up with lots of statements on ultimate reality. I'm going to use some technical words. So those of you who have a book, paper, pencil, you must write down. Otherwise, with the flow, you may also find it very difficult. Those of you who are comfortable not taking notes, it's fine. But since we are going to use a lot of Sanskrit terminologies, which could be potentially new for many, it would be easy to follow if you may also make a note of them. The Upanishad terms, the statements are twofold in nature. Karanavakyas, Chodakavakyas. Karanavakya, Chodakavakya. What are Karanavakya as a statement? Karanavakya, all the statements which declare that Brahman, God, is the cause. Karanavakya. Declarative statements which basically define how he is the cause of all causes. Karanavakyas. Chodakavakyas. Chodakavakyas are all the statements which explain the nature of that Parabrahman. Chodakavakyas. Karanavakyas. Eko havai Narayana asit. Na Brahma na cha Shankaraha. Narayanad Brahmo jayate. Narayanad Rudro jayate. Sadeva Soumya idamagramasit. Ekameva advitiyam. There are several statements which talk about Narayana as the cause, the supreme Brahman as the cause. Karanavakyas. Everything emanates from him. All the devatas, entire creation, they all belong to him. There is only one supreme being. Therefore, it is Karanavakyas. There are several statements across the Upanishads. So, therefore, through these Karanavakyas, we can understand that he, Bhagavan, is the cause of all causes. Then, how do we know his nature? There are several other statements, Chodakavakyas, which deal with giving us a description of his nature. How do we understand? Let's take a simple analogy. Now, if somebody comes to you and says, describe an elephant. When somebody asks you to describe, that person has not seen an elephant before in his life. So you have seen an elephant. Now, if you start describing that an elephant is dark in color, it's huge and it is four-legged, would that be enough to communicate distinctly the nature of an elephant? It wouldn't be enough, because even a buffalo can be understood based on this. Several other. So, when we are trying to understand the nature, the Upanishads take it up at two levels. Swarupa Nirupaka Dharma, which means unique characteristics. How do I define God in a unique manner so that I cannot mistake, I cannot have any misunderstanding whatsoever? With clarity, I understand the nature. Just like if the same person were to say, to describe the nature of an elephant. The elephant is an animal which has fan-like, winnover-like ears. It has a trunk hanging right in front of its face with two tusks. Very unique features which cannot be mistaken, which cannot be found. Clearly make it distinct and clear, different and distinct from every other entity. Come up with a list of characteristics which make that entity as distinct and different. So we get clear understanding of that. Swarupa Nirupaka Dharma. Dharma means attributes. How do I clearly define God in such a way that I do not mistake anything else to God, every other entity to God? Then the Upanishads also talk about Nirupita Swarupa Dharma, Nirupaka Swarupa. After I clearly identify him, there are several other characteristics with which I can relish him. He has several qualities, several attributes with which I can relish him. He is so very beautiful. He is so very compassionate. So many gunas. He has the guna of Vatsalya. He has the guna of Karuna. So many things, innumerable auspicious qualities, which all belong to him, which can be relished. But fundamentally, we need to clearly have unique characteristics of Bhagavan. And what are those unique characteristics of Bhagavan? The BrahmAnandavalli says, Satyam, jnanam, anantam, Brahma. That's the unique Swarupa Nirupita Dharma. Satyam, jnanam, anantam. These are the three fundamental characteristics which differentiate, which explain to us the nature and also clearly make him distinct and different from everything else. Satyam. Satyam is his nature. Satyam also his Swarupa and is also his guna. How? Satyam means the unchanging reality is Satyam. That which never changes. We loosely translate Satyam as truth. But Satyam is that which never changes. Since truth can never change, we also translate Satyam as truth. But Satyam is that reality, that which is unchanging in nature. That existence which is not conditioned by anything else. That is the nature of Bhagavan. He is unchanging. And if we look at Satyam and break it down, Sat, Ti, Yam, Satyam. Sat, that which is immortal. Ti, that is mortal. Yam, Yamayati, that which brings both together and controls is Satyam. Sat, what is immortal? All the sentient beings, all the jivatmas, the sentient beings are Sat. Ti, all the insentient Prakriti is mortal. Ti, Yam, Yamayati, one who rules, one who brings both the immortal and the mortal together, Prakriti and Purusha together. He is Satyam, he is Satyasya Satyam. So Satyam, Swarupa, and his Swarupa Nirupaka Dharma as well. Clearly, he is the only one. Then comes Jnanam. Satyam, Jnanam. Jnana, consciousness, knowledge. He is Jnana Swarupa, he is constituted of knowledge. He is also Jnana Gunaka, which means he also possesses infinite knowledge. And it is his knowledge which doesn't contract and expand like our knowledge. For all the Baddha Jivas, knowledge is contracting and expanding all the time. Samsara is contraction of knowledge. Moksha is expansion of knowledge. For all the Baddha Jivas, knowledge is contracting. Even the Mukta Jivas, whose knowledge is expanded limitlessly, once upon a time they were in samsara. That is why in the Gita Krishna says, Yomam ajamanadim cha vetti loka maheshwaram asammudas samatteshu sarvapapai pramuchyate. Hey Arjuna, how do you understand me? How should one understand me? Krishna says, Yomam ajam anadim vetti loka maheshwaram. I am unborn, ajam. Krishna says, one should understand him as ajam, unborn. Ajam, unborn, differentiates him from Prakriti, which keeps always changing. Ajam, Anadim. Anadi. Anadi means his knowledge is it never contracts. For Baddha Jivas, The knowledge contracts. So is different and distinct from the Baddha Jivas. Then what about Mukta Jivas? Anadim Majam. For Mukta Jivas, once upon a time, they were in samsara. So therefore, Anadim Majam, he is distinct and different from Baddha Jivas and Mukta Jivas. Vetti Lokamaheshwaram, he is also distinct and different from Nitya Jivas. So therefore, in Gita, Krishna essentially established the same, that he is distinct. How do I know him clearly, distinctly? And Satyam, jnanam. Jnanam, the one whose knowledge is never subject to any change. Satyam, jnanam, anantam. Anantam. Ananta means infinite. Desha, kala, vastu, paricheda rahitam anantam. When we say infinite, Bhagavan is infinite. Why do we say is infinite? Desha means space, kala, time. Desha, kala, paricheda rahitam. Space, time, any entity. He is not conditioned, constrained by space, time, and any other entity. Everything in this creation is conditioned by all these three: space, time, and other entities. Whereas he is ananta. That's why he is limitless. Satyam, jnanam, anantam. He is also the one who not only creates, after creating, he enters his creation. Why he enters his creation? He pervades his creation in order to control. If he is the creator, he is the one who pervades and permeates. He is the one who commands. He is the one who sustains. He is the one who takes care of the order. So therefore, it is very clear that he is endowed with a special kind of jnana. Satyam, jnanam, anantam. Satyam, jnanam, anantam Brahma. Yo veda nihitam guhaya parame vyoman. Soshnute sarvan kaman saha brahmana vipaschiteti. So we get the answer to the first question. What is that unique nature of Bhagavan? Satyam, jnanam, anantam Brahma. Now the second question is, what is the means to attain him? Yo veda nihitam guhayam parame vyoman. That Paramapurusha is not just there in Vaikuntha, he is there very much inside us as Paramatma. Yo veda nihitam guhayam parame vyoman. And how do I attain him? Yo veda, veda, vedana, nididhyasana, upasana, jnana. They are all synonymous. They are all synonymous. How do I attain him? By doing upasana, by doing vedana, by doing nididhyasana. This is the way. Yo veda nihitam guhayam parame vyoman. So we get answer to the second question. First question was, what is the nature of Brahman? Second question, how do I attain him? Yo veda nihitam guhaya parame vyoman. Third question, what is the nature of attainment? What happens after I attain him? Yo veda nihitam guhayam parame vyoman soshnute sarvan kaman saha brahmanaha vipaschiteti. Sarvan kaman saha brahmanaha. Which means, after attaining him, the Jivatma continues to experience Brahman and his gunas continuously. Yo veda nihitam guhayam parame vyoman soshnute sarvan kaman saha brahmanaha vipaschiteti. What is the nature of moksha? Moksha is uniting with Brahman and continuing to experience Brahmananda. That is the answer to the third question. So, very clearly, three questions. Right at the beginning of BrahmAnandavalli, we get answers to all the three questions. Brahma vidapnoti param tadeshabhyukta satyam jnanam anantam Brahma yo veda nihitam guhayam parame vyoman soshnute sarvan kaman sah brahmana vipaschiteti. Tasmad. Then it continues. Then akashad vayuh vayo ragnihi agne rapah adbhya prithvi prithivya oshadayah oshadebhyo annam. Then the Upanishad describes the beautiful process of creation. So we have to visualize this creation as it happens. The Upanishad gives a very succinct manner. But also, when we deep dive, we can also visualize how the aggregate creation, this physical universe, this material world, how does it get created? It says, Akashad vayuh vayoragnihi agnerapah adbhya prithvi. Now, when we dive into look at how these building blocks, this universe has building blocks. The Panchabhutas are the building blocks of the universe. But how do these Panchabhutas come into being, come into existence as part of the creation? Moola Prakriti emanates from Brahman. From Narayana, he has twin properties. Krishna says, I have twin properties. Para Prakriti, Apara Prakriti. So, Prakriti, Moola Prakriti. From Prakriti comes Mahan. From Mahan, Ahankara. Ahankara divides into Tamasa Ahankara, Sattvika Ahankara. Sattvika Ahankara, then from them emanates all our Karmendriyas, Jnanendriyas, and the Manas. From the Tamasa Ahankara emanates all the Tanmatras. What are Tanmatras? Now we are looking at the physics and the chemistry and the science of this creation. The building blocks. Tanmatras, causal substances. We all know Panchabhutas at a broad level, but we loosely translate them as air, water, sky. The Panchabhutas are nothing to do with what we see. The water that we see is not Apaha. The air that we see is not Vayu. The Akasha, the sky that we see is not Akasha. What we see are the end products after several permutations and combinations that happen. Now, the Panchabhutas we are talking about are the primary building blocks. The first Tanmatra that emanates from Tamasa Ahankara is Shabda Tanmatra. Shabda. From Shabda Tanmatra. Tanmatra, the causal substance, is responsible for the creation of a Panchabhuta. One of the bhutas. From Shabda Tanmatra, then Akasha is created. Therefore, one of the primary qualities of Akasha is Shabda. From Shabda Tanmatra, Akasha gets created. From Akasha, Sparsha Tanmatra emanates. Then with Sparsha Tanmatra, Vayu is created. From Vayu, Rupa Tanmatra emanates. With Rupa Tanmatra, Agni is created. From Agni, Gandha Tanmatra emanates. With Gandha Tanmatra, Rasa Tanmatra emanates. With Rasa Tanmatra, Apaha is created. From Apaha, Gandha Tanmatra emanates. With Gandha Tanmatra, the Prithvi Tanmatra, the Bhutan Matra. So, Akashat Vayuhu, Vayoragnihi, Agnerapah, Adbhya Prithvi. The 5 Panchabhutas are created. Another way to also understand this is what is process called Panchikarana, quintuplication. What is Panchikarana? You take all the 5 Tanmatras. Bhagavan, jokingly we can say, he is working in a laboratory and he has these 5 Shabda, Sparisha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha Tanmatras, 5 Tanmatras. Bhagavan looks at 5 Tanmatras, he takes half of every Tanmatra, and to this half, he mixes with it 1/8 of every other Tanmatra. He takes half of every Tanmatra. That is why every Panchabhuta has a dominant quality. If you take Akasha, Akasha's dominant quality is Shabda, but it also contains Sparisha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha also. In every Panchabhuta, all the 5 Tanmatras are there, but one is dominant. So, he takes half of Shabda Tanmatra, then he takes of 1/8 of Sparisha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, puts them together. Akasha is created. He takes the Sparisha, he takes half of Sparsha Tanmatra, he takes 1/8 of the other 4, then Vayu is created. Similarly, he creates Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, and Prithvi. So, thus, the Upanishad beautifully describes the aggregate creation, the building blocks, and then with these building blocks, everything then creates. It's all about the permutation and combination of all these 3. And we also see how Krishna explains the same a little bit more detail by bringing the 3 gunas as well, because ultimately everything is made of 3 gunas, eventually showing how just from 3 this infinite variety is created. So thus, right at the beginning in BrahmAnandavalli, the Upanishad explains the process of the whole creation, aggregate creation as it happens. We also see in BrahmAnandavalli another important topic. This is a topic where the Upanishad helps us to peel the various layers of our existence. How do we discover our nature and how do we discover Bhagavan? It helps us to visualize 5 concrete forms of Bhagavan. These 5 concrete forms of Bhagavan, the Upanishad actually graphically represents them as 5 forms, 5 Purushas. Annamaya Purusha, Pranamaya Purusha, Manomaya Purusha, Vijnanamaya Purusha, Anandamaya Purusha. All these 5. And these 5 forms can also be understood as 5 layers that cover reality. This is also explained as Pancha Koshas. Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Kosha. Kosha is nothing but sheath. Just for us to visualize, there is this light which needs to be discovered. But there are layers that surround this light. To uncover the light, we need to necessarily peel away the layers, understand each layer. Our existence is multidimensional. We do not, in our day-to-day life and living, we do not realize, we are not aware of our multidimensional experience, multidimensional existence. We tend to identify ourselves with the grossest level of existence. The grossest level being the physical bodies. We do not go beyond, because for us, the I is equated with the body. And beyond this, nothing exists. Now, where here in the Upanishad, we try to unravel the mystery of our own nature and the nature of Bhagavan. So therefore, the Upanishad takes us to understand, know, experience and realize the Antaryami in each and every one of us. The Paramatma. Bhagavan has several modes of the way he is present. He is present as Paravasudeva and Vaikuntha. He is present as Vyuha Vasudeva and Kshirabdi. And from there, he takes various manifestations, Vibhava-avataras. He is also present as various Archa. He is also present as Antaryami within us. But we keep looking for him everywhere other than within. He is very much with us all the time, but we are searching constantly as though he has to be found somewhere else. So here, through taking us through a journey of these 5 layers, Annamaya Kosha, the form of Bhagavan as Annamaya. So here, Annamaya, Annam means food, but Annam is not just food. Annam is much more than food. All the physical elements put together can be called Annam. The grossest level, because everything that constitutes our physical existence, all the 5 Panchabhutas, in a way, Annam is what nourishes us. And Annamaya Kosha is our physical body, which is constituted of Prakriti, the Panchabhutas. So at that level, then instead of staying at that, it's important to understand this level, because ultimately the physical body is required for us for the journey. We cannot discard and say, if I have to discover the ultimate truth, I cannot say this is not needed, because otherwise there is no journey. If I have to reach my destination, I need a car. So understanding that Annamaya Purusha, the Annamaya Kosha, it's only a sheath, then I unravel. And then beyond the physical, I look at the physiological, Pranamaya, the physiological, the 5 forces which govern our life and living. Prana, Prana, Apana, Udana, Samana, Vyana. The body functions so very magically. We possibly are not even aware how this happens. Do we even pause and think as to how we actually breathe in and breathe out constantly all the time? We do breathing unconsciously. Do we know how digestion is happening within the body? Do we know how whatever goes in gets circulated throughout the body? What goes in is assimilated and what is not needed is then thrown out. All this is happening without us consciously being involved in any of this. There is so much of activity happening within this body. We are completely unaware of this. There are 72,000 nadis within this body. And if you have to look at it from point of view of science, there are trillions of cells that are working all together, and all the physiological functions of the body is going on. And that is the pranamaya kosha. That is the layer where the 5 pancha pranas are governing everything. Our, be it what we intake, the energy that goes in, the waste that comes out, the assimilation of energy that happens within the body, the various metabolic activities, and the production of sound, the way we stand, the way we walk, the enthusiasm that we have, all of this is governed by all these pancha pranas. And it is at that layer that we realize that when we peel, then something beyond pranas is manomaya kosha, manas, where all the perception is happening. That is the layer. But then we don't stop there. It says, peel once again and go inside. Vijnanamaya kosha, Vijnanamaya purusha. This is the Atman who is endowed with knowledge. Now, as long as the Atman is in this body, bound by these sheets of Annamaya, Pranamaya and Manomaya, his knowledge is constrained. And only when he exits from this body, that Vijnana starts to expand. Vijnanamaya purusha. Eventually, just like how Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, they are all various sheets, they are all bodies. There is a physical body, and the physical body, within the physical body dwells the Atman. So the Atman, the physical body is the Sharira for the Atman. Within the Atman, Vijnanamaya Purusha, Anandamaya Purusha. The Paramatma is the Shariri, the Jivatma is the Sharira. Ultimately, when you peel the final layer, we see the ultimate, who is the Anandamaya Purusha, who is Bhagavan. That is why the Upanishad says, Yattat vai sukrutam aso vai saha rasagyevayam labhva anandi bhavati. That is the very end of our journey, where we reach a stage, we attain a state where we realize that we have reached the very source of all rasa, all ananda, all bliss, unadulterated, limitless bliss, where there are no constraints whatsoever. And that source of all this ananda is that Parabrahman. That is why this Upanishad is called BrahmAnandavalli. Now, let us pause here to jump into Bhriguvalli, and we will come back to conclude Anandavalli. Bhriguvalli is a beautiful conversation happening between Acharya, Varuna and Sishya Bhrigu. It is called Bhriguvalli because it captures the journey of Bhrigu in knowing ultimate reality. The beauty of the Upanishads is that they provide a framework for us to realize the unknowable, the unseeable through something which can be known and seen. To realize the adrishta with drishta. What is adrishta and drishta? Drishta, what we can see, what we can perceive. Adrishta, what cannot be seen, what cannot be perceived. Now, how do we perceive Bhagavan? We cannot, because we have limitations, we have limited faculties. With our indriyas, we cannot, with our mind, we cannot perceive him. But the Upanishads teach a framework where in the journey, we start to understand him through things with which we can easily relate to, things that are seeable, knowable, and in that process, we also gain some knowledge, and then we continue the journey. This is demonstrated in Bhriguvalli, where Varuna is teaching Bhrigu. Now, good old days, the teaching was so very different. A guru only gives the seed of knowledge to the Sishya. What does it mean? The seed is given, then the Sishya has to take the seed, sow the seed, get the soil ready, he has to pour water. He has to ensure that there is adequate sunlight so that eventually the seed of knowledge then sprouts, blossoms, and becomes a tree of knowledge. That approach, if we take today, nobody will come. I will give you the seed. You go and do. No, I want the fruit. And can you give it to me in 2 minutes? Give me the fruit of everything of knowledge. I'll give you 2 minutes. This is the biggest challenge that we are all facing today. How do I answer any question in only 2 minutes? They say beyond 2 minutes, nobody wants to even spend their attention. Unfortunately, the profound truths where the rishis spent ages, we want all of that in a capsule of 2 minutes. But luckily, those days is a different situation altogether, where Varuna said, Bhrigu, I embrace you to come on this path. I accept your Sishya, but you also have a role. No spoon feeding, Bhrigu. I will give you a framework, I will guide you. But you have to do your own contemplation. You have to do your own. Shravana is one part. Shravana, the Guru enables. But after Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana belongs to the Sishya. The Sishya cannot say, you not only give me, Shravana is only not enough, also do the Manana on my behalf, do the Nididhyasana behalf, and I should have the Darshana. How is it going to be possible? Darshana is mine. I need to experience Bhagavan. That is a very personal experience. Me experiencing Krishna is between me and Krishna. I can explain it to you in 1,000 words, in 1,000,000 words, and I can continue. But that experience is so very personal. Now, to get to that experience, Shravana is important, but between that experience and Shravana, there is a very crucial process of Manana, Nididhyasana. If Manana doesn't happen and Nididhyasana doesn't happen, Darshana will never happen. So, a Sishya cannot tell a Guru that you failed because Darshana is not happening to me. Varuna laid down the path to Bhrigu. Said, hey Bhrigu, you have a very noble mission of realizing Brahman, and therefore let me enable. Please do contemplate. I will give you the profound truth. I will give you a definition. And you go, the definition is like the seed. Now you have to go sow the seed, you have to water it and see how it grows. Bhrigu readily agreed. Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti abhisamvishanti tat vijijñāsasva tad brahmeti. This is the seed that I give you, Varuna says. He gives a glorious definition of who is God and says, now you need to start contemplating, do manana, nididhyasana, and you have to start arriving at conclusions, and I will help you in that process. Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti abhisamvishanti tad vijijñāsasva tad brahmeti. Who is that Parabrahman? Who is that Narayana? Yatova, from whom everything emanates, who sustains everything that is emanated and created, in whom everything finally merges and dissolves. Know that as the Supreme Being. This is the definition given. Bhrigu dutifully goes and starts doing tapasya, starts contemplating on this. So, and he starts, as he contemplates, he is trying to relate to how I can realize Brahman now. Annad brahmeti vyajanat, annadyeva kalvimani bhutani jayante, annad jatani jivanti, annena prayanti abhisamvishanti. He first says annam. Annam, when we say annam, food, and also all this material world. Annad, from food, the Purusha comes. This Purusha is sustained by food, and eventually, when the Purusha dies, he goes back to annam. Everything comes from Panchabhutas at a physical level now. Bhrigu is now contemplating. I have a physical body. This physical body is nothing but a bunch of molecules that have come together. Now, after death, what happens? This physical body merges with Panchabhutas again. In whichever way, whether we burn it, whether we bury it, whatever we do with it, it is sustained by annam. It starts from annam, sustained by annam, merges back to annam. Aha, moment for Bhrigu. Immediately he rushes to Varuna. His guru says, Acharya, now I have found out. Annad brahmeti vyajanat. Annam is Brahman, he says. Varuna says, you are on the right track, long way to go. Sends him back. So Bhrigu goes back, again contemplates. Pranat brahmeti vyajanat, pranatyeva kalvimani bhutani jayante, pranat jatani jivanti, pranena abhisambhisanti iti. So he says, prana, everything starts with prana, life starts with prana. So the cause is prana. The pancha pranas sustain life. So therefore, what is sustained is prana. Again, at the time of exit, the subtle body merges with prana and exit. Therefore, everything merges with prana. Therefore, prana is Brahman. Bhrigu comes running back. Varuna, I found out the answer. Pranat brahmeti vyajanat. On the right track, far way to go. Go back. Bhrigu goes back. Again starts contemplating, doing tapasya. Mano brahmeti vyajanat. Manasahyeva kalvimani bhutani jayante. Manasa jatani jivanti. Manasya. Then mind, everything. When I come into being, into existence, I start perceiving this world. In a way, life starts with my engagement with the world, perception. So the cause is mind, manas. It is only when I start to perceive the world that I even say everything starts. The starting point is manas. And then throughout, it's the mental activity. My life is nothing but a series of mental activity. Therefore, it is the mind which sustains me. And then towards the end, when the mental activity ceases, life comes to an end. So therefore, I have found the answer. Manas brahmeti vyajanat. He rushes back to Varuna and says, I have found the answer. Sorry, buddy, long way to go. You have to go back. And then he goes back and starts contemplating. Jnanam brahmeti vyajanat. Jnaneva kalvimani bhutani jayante. Jnanam jatani jivanti. Jnanam abhishanti prayanti. So he said, now knowledge, vijnana, it is only with the power of knowledge I start making right decisions in life. So which means the discriminatory power of the jivatma. If I have to look at life as not living, not existence, but as life. There is a difference between existence and life. Existence means just going through in a way, programmed way. Every living being exists. Only human being lives. There's a big difference. Existence is every living being has a program. It goes through life based on the program. But it is only the human being which is endowed with vijnana, the knowledge, discriminatory power. So therefore, the real life that I can live, it starts with vijnana and knowing Bhagavan. And with that knowledge is what my life is sustained. And it is with that knowledge my life comes to an end. Therefore, vijnana is Brahman. He goes to says, vijnanam is Brahman. Varuna looks at him and says, very close you have come. Very, very close, but still far away. No, you still have to put in effort. So he then goes back. Bhrigu now goes and contemplates. And then comes the final aha moment. Anando brahmeti vyajanat. Anandadeva kalvimani bhutani jayante. Anandena jatani jivanti. Anandam prayanti abhisambhishanti iti. Saisha bhargavi varuni vidya. Parame vyoman pratishtita. So this is called Varuni Vidya. Why? Because it is the guidance of the Guru Varuni that has resulted in the realization for the Sishya Bhrigu. Anando brahmeti vyajanat. He realizes now Bhagavan is the cause. And he is not an ordinary cause. He is Ananda. And therefore, what is our destination? Our destination also has to be Ananda. If our source is Ananda, our destination has to be Ananda. Our source is limitless Ananda. Ananda that is not subject to any alteration. No changes. So during the journey in samsara, we realize, how come we are not able to experience that limitless Ananda? Which means we have not reached the destination. If my source is that Bhagavan who is endowed with limitless Ananda, my destination has to be going back to in Anandavalli what it says, Rasaguhyevayam Anandi Bhavati. The whole journey is going towards him. As we keep going towards him, And as we start experiencing him, experiencing his gunas, the rasa, the bliss starts to increase. And ultimately, we are sustained by that rasa, by that ananda. Our source is that ananda, we are sustained. Without ananda in samsara, we cannot be sustained at all. Even though the happiness that we experience in samsara is very fleeting in nature, thankfully those moments of happiness sustain everything else for us. And when we are experiencing those fleeting moments, we need to realize that these are small fragments of that limitless ananda of Krishna, who is waiting for us to reach him, because the source of limitless ananda is waiting for us. So therefore, ananda, the bliss, is the cause. Bliss is to be sustained, and bliss is where we have to reach. Paramevyoman Vaikuntha, where bliss is unlimited to be experienced. Soshnute sarvan kaman saha brahmana vipastiteti. Going back to where we started in Anandavalli. Satyam jnanam anantam Brahma yo veda nihitam guhayam paramevyoman soshnute sarvan kaman saha brahmana vipastiteti. Sarvan kaman saha brahmana, together with him. This is what in the Gita Krishna says, Mama sadharmyamagataha, come to me to experience that limitless bliss. That is the state of moksha, where we continue to experience his beauty. Where we say the quest, our life journey is a quest for happiness. What is that quest for happiness? It is a quest for truth. What is that quest for truth? It is the quest for Bhagavan's beauty. It is the quest for the sweetness of Bhagavan. Because when we look at him, he has broadly two categories of qualities. One is all about his greatness. When we know how great he is, immediately we are in awe. We are in awe of Bhagavan, and knowing that he is fearless, greatless, who has no comparison whatsoever, immediately we submit to him. But more than knowing his greatness, when we know his limitless sweetness, we start loving him. We get to know that he is not only somebody who is supremely great, he is somebody who is supremely loving and lovable. And ultimately, our quest for truth, our quest for happiness, our quest for reaching that final state is essentially quest for that sweetness, that rasa, that ananda. And that ananda is we only experience in various conditioned gradations here. And when we finally attain him without any gradations, we are in that blissful state, which is what is called BrahmAnanda. So thus, in Bhriguvalli, we see how do we journey through this process of knowing him through something which we can easily relate to. And all this put together, Taittiriya Upanishad, we get answers through three important questions. What is the nature of that Parabrahman? What is the means to attain him? And what is the nature of the attainment of him? With all this, there is one thing which becomes very clear. Ultimately, it is essentially identifying, recognizing our own natural longing. Because in this life and living, we all are filled with desires, which are our longings. And what are these longings? Longing to exist eternally, longing to love everlastingly. These are the two longings, ultimately. All of us do not want to die. We want to exist forever. Whether we admit it, not admit it at all, whether we realize that the body has an expiry date at all, we still have that longing. We still, like in Yaksha Prashna, very beautifully it is said, Yudhishthira is answering. It seems somebody who was carrying, who has a job of carrying a dead body is counting money, saying, today if I carry 10 dead bodies, I will make so much money, tomorrow I can live happily. Not knowing that sooner or later, he also is going to become a dead body very soon. Whether we like it or not, that longing is there, but that longing is pointing to something else. It is not pointing to the body, It is pointing to our real nature. And it is possible to fulfill that longing. It is possible to fulfill that longing for eternal existence because we are eternal. We are eternal. The body is not eternal. The Atman is eternal. We are eternal. And the other longing that we have is to be loved eternally and to love eternally. Unfortunately, in this material world, it is not possible. What we love, the object of our love keeps changing all the time, and the kind of love that is showered on us also keeps changing. So that longing is never fulfilled. But that can be fulfilled the moment we direct that longing towards Krishna. So that is why between the three, Siksha, Bhrigu, and in the middle, Anandavalli, Brahmananda, it is that Ananda, that fulfillment of the ultimate longing that we have. The Upanishad, in the process of giving us profound wisdom, addresses the core of what we are actually after in our life and living. That is fulfillment of our fundamental longings. We need to be eternally grateful to the rishis who have, in many ways, dedicated their lives to pass on this treasure to us. Now, we started off discussing Siksha and how without the Shastra of Siksha, possibly today, we wouldn't have had all this. Now, we have to extend this for a moment, not just to the Vedas and the Vedanta. All the Vidyasthanas that we discussed right at the beginning, they were all preserved and propagated only through Shabda. That is why Shabda Pramana is so very important to us. And the only way we can express our gratitude to all the rishis of over thousands of years who have worked for preservation and propagation is if we can even take a small fragment out of these Chaturdasha Vidyasthanas, learn them and practice them in our life and living. As we see across the Upanishads, there is profound wisdom, philosophy, but there is also philosophy of conduct, how to lead our lives. That's the beauty of these Upanishads. Very relevant to even this day. In this short span of time, we relished at a very, very high level Taittiriya Upanishad. We can obviously, at different points in time, dive deep into all the anuvakas of ShikshAvalli, Bhriguvalli and Anandavalli. But right now, let us conclude expressing our gratitude to Vedavyasa, to Vaishampayana, to Yajnavalkya, to Apastamba, to Bodhayana. Also, we need to thank all our acharyas who have helped interpret. We have not studied the Vedas, we have not studied the Vedangas, but to some extent, with our Mandhamati, we are able to understand a little bit. Thankfully to all the acharyas, Adi Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhva, several other acharyas who have dedicated their lives trying to bring the message of all these shastras to us so that we can understand them and practice them. Let us take this opportunity to express our gratitude to all these Mahacharyas as well. Sarvam Sri Krishnarpanamastu.